Before the hit came, he was already there. In your stance, in your cadence, in your confidence. Joey Porter didn't wait for the whistle to beat you. He started winning long before the ball was snapped. Quarterbacks rushed throws, linemen lost focus, game plans unraveled, not because of one play, but because of pressure that never stopped talking. Some defenders punish your body. Joey Porter punished your mind. Every word was calculated. Every stare was intentional. Every step across the line was designed to make you react. And once you did, he had you. In Pittsburgh, they didn't ask him to be quiet. They asked him to be effective. And he became the emotional engine of one of the most feared defenses in the NFL. This isn't just a story about trash talk. It's about how fear becomes a weapon, how intimidation becomes strategy, and how one man turned psychological warfare into championship football. You're watching Black and Gold Legacy. If you believe the game is won as much in the mind as it is on the field, like, share, and subscribe. Because Joey Porter didn't just hit you, he got inside your head. Built for confrontation. Joey Porter didn't grow up learning how to avoid conflict. He grew up learning how to face it. From an early age, football wasn't just a game to him. It was a place where emotion, aggression, and survival all met. He played with something most players never develop: controlled anger. Not reckless, not random, directed. While other kids focused on technique, Joey focused on dominance. He wanted opponents to feel him, not just physically, but mentally. He studied reactions, watched body language, learned when players flinched and when they hesitated. Coaches noticed it immediately. They didn't have to teach him intensity. They had to teach him restraint. Even before the spotlight found him, Joey Porter was already wired differently. He believed football was about imposing your will, making the other side uncomfortable, forcing mistakes, and taking away confidence one snap at a time. This mindset followed him everywhere. Every practice felt like a challenge. Every rep felt personal. And while it pushed teammates, it also earned their respect. Because Joey didn't fake toughness, he lived it. Long before the NFL ever heard his name, Joey Porter was preparing for a game that went beyond X's and O's, a game played inside your head. The edge that couldn't be ignored. Joey Porter didn't come from a powerhouse program. There were no weekly national spotlights, no constant headlines. At Colorado State, he learned how to dominate without attention. From the first snap, it was clear he played with a different edge. His speed off the line was explosive, but what separated him was anticipation. He didn't just react, he attacked. Quarterbacks felt pressure before he ever arrived. Opponents talked about his hits, coaches talked about his energy. Scouts hesitated. Because the talent was obvious, the question was control. Porter's intensity turned games. He disrupted protections, forced hurried decisions, and made offenses adjust entire game plans around him. Even when he didn't record a sack, his presence shaped drives. Still, doubts followed him. Was he too emotional, too aggressive, too unpredictable? At a smaller school, those labels stuck harder. But Joey Porter wasn't trying to fit a mold. He was sharpening his edge, learning how to channel aggression into impact. Every season, he became more dangerous, more confident, and more impossible to ignore. By the time his college career ended, one thing was certain. You could question his temperament. You couldn't question his effect. And soon, an NFL franchise known for embracing intensity was about to make a decision that would change everything. Drafted with doubt. When the 1999 NFL Draft arrived, Joey Porter's name carried two very different reactions. Teens saw the production, they saw the speed, they saw the disruption. But they also saw the edge. Some organizations hesitated. They worried about discipline, about penalties, about whether Porter's intensity could be controlled at the professional level. The Pittsburgh Steelers saw it differently. They didn't view his emotion as a weakness. They viewed it as raw material. When the Steelers selected Joey Porter in the 3rd round, it wasn't just a pick, it was a calculated risk. Pittsburgh believed in defensive identity, in physical football, in players who could impose themselves on opponents. Porter entered a locker room filled with veterans who didn't tolerate shortcuts or excuses. Respect wasn't given, it was earned. Every practice was a test, every rep mattered. Joey responded the only way he knew how, by playing hard, talking less, and absorbing the standard around him. The learning curve was steep, mistakes were punished, discipline was demanded. Slowly, the edge that once raised concerns began to sharpen into something more precise. By the end of his early seasons, it was clear the Steelers hadn't drafted a problem, they had drafted a weapon. Earning his place in the steel curtain. Pittsburgh defenses don't hand out starting roles, they demand proof. When Joey Porter arrived, the locker room was filled with established names, veterans who had earned their voice through years of discipline and production. Nobody cared how loud he was. Nobody cared how intense he looked. They cared whether he could deliver. Early on, Porter was tested constantly, in practice, in meetings, on Sundays. He was pushed to control his emotion without losing his edge. Every mistake was corrected immediately. Every lapse was exposed. Then came the moment that changed how he was viewed. In a key game situation, Porter was matched against a protection designed to neutralize him. Extra blockers, quick throws. The offense tried to erase his impact. It didn't work. Porter kept coming. He disrupted timing, forced hurried decisions, turned pressure into chaos. Even when he wasn't making the tackle, he was dictating behavior. From that point on, things shifted. Coaches trusted him in critical moments. Teammates fed off his energy. Offenses began sliding protection his way, acknowledging his presence before the snap. Joey Porter wasn't just another linebacker anymore. He was part of the steel curtain lineage. His voice grew louder because his play demanded attention. His intensity became contagious, and slowly, Pittsburgh's defense began to reflect his personality, aggressive, confrontational, and unafraid. But the line between intimidation and controversy is thin, and Porter was about to start walking it every Sunday. When football became psychological warfare. Joey Porter understood something most defenders never fully grasp. Football isn't just played with pads and helmets, it's played with confidence, and confidence can be broken. Before the snap, Porter was already working. He talked, he stared, he hovered just close enough to be felt. He wanted quarterbacks thinking about him even when he wasn't rushing. He wanted linemen guessing instead of reacting. Every word had purpose. Every step across the line was calculated. This wasn't random trash talk, it was strategy. Quarterbacks speed up their cadence. Offensive linemen lost discipline. Receivers looked backfield instead of downfield. Sometimes Porter didn't even need to make the play. The damage was already done. Coaches hated him for it. Opponents complained about him. Officials watched him closely. But his teammates understood exactly what he was doing. He was controlling the tempo. Joey Porter forced offenses out of their rhythm. He made players emotional, and emotional players make mistakes. A false start here, a rushed throw there, one bad decision that flipped a game. That was his real impact. He didn't just react to plays, he dictated behavior. And once teams realized they couldn't ignore him, physically or mentally, Joey Porter became more than a linebacker. He became a problem that game plans couldn't solve. By the early 2000s, Joey Porter wasn't just making noise before the snap, he was making decisions after it. His role on the Steelers' defense expanded beyond pass rushing. He became the emotional signal, the player teammates looked to when momentum shifted, when energy dipped, when a response was needed. Porter led with presence. He called things out. He challenged teammates. He set the temperature of the huddle. When he was locked in, the defense played faster, sharper, more aggressive. Opponents felt it too. AFC North battles became personal. Games against Baltimore and Cleveland weren't just physical, they were confrontational. Porter thrived in that environment. He embraced chaos and used it to fuel performance. Stat sheets showed sacks and pressures, but his real value wasn't always measurable. It was in how offenses changed protection, how quarterbacks rushed reads, how entire game plans bent around his location. Joey Porter became the face of a defense that didn't apologize for intimidation. He didn't soften his edge as his role grew, he refined it. He learned when to strike, when to talk, and when to let silence do the work. But living on that edge comes with a cost, and soon the line between leadership and controversy would become impossible to ignore. The price of playing angry. When you live on the edge every Sunday, eventually the edge cuts back. For Joey Porter, the same fire that made him effective also made him a target. Officials watched him closely. Opponents tried to bait him. Media narratives shifted from impact to incidents. Flags followed, fines followed, criticism got louder. Every emotion was magnified, every reaction replayed. What fans didn't always see was the toll it took. Playing angry is exhausting. Being on all the time leaves no space to breathe. There were games where Porter still dominated, collapsing pockets, disrupting timing, but the conversation focused on penalties instead of performance. Moments of intensity were framed as lack of control. No cameras caught the silence afterward. No headlines covered the weight he carried home. But Porter never backed down, because to him, softening his edge meant losing who he was. He believed intimidation was part of defense, a necessary discomfort that forced mistakes. Still, the pressure added up, the body wore down, and a league kept moving forward. Joey Porter was learning the hardest lesson of all. When you play with fire, the game remembers the flames, not the burns. But before his chapter in Pittsburgh closed, there was still one moment that would define everything he stood for. When fear won championships. In the 2005 season, everything Joey Porter represented came into focus. This wasn't about individual moments anymore. It was about setting a tone that lasted 4 quarters and all postseason. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense played angry, disciplined, and relentless. Opponents didn't just prepare for schemes, they prepared for confrontation. And at the center of it all was Joey Porter. He wasn't chasing sacks, he was collapsing confidence. Quarterbacks rushed throws, protection slid his way, entire offenses adjusted just to survive the pressure he created. Even when he didn't touch the quarterback, his presence shaped the game. During the Steelers' Super Bowl 40 run, Porter embodied the identity of the team. Physical football, psychological pressure, no apologies. When the Steelers reached the Super Bowl and finished the job, the championship didn't feel accidental. It felt earned, the result of weeks of intimidation, preparation, and belief. For Joey Porter, the ring meant more than validation. It meant proof. Proof that intensity, when controlled, could win at the highest level. Proof that fear wasn't a flaw, it was a weapon. and proof that the Steelers were right to trust the edge everyone else questioned. But once the noise faded, another challenge waited, because football doesn't tell you how to live without it. After the whistle. When the pads finally came off, the silence was loud. For years, Joey Porter lived in chaos, crowds screaming, opponents jawing, adrenaline never shutting off. Then one day, it stopped. Retirement didn't come with a playbook for someone like Porter. The game that once gave him purpose, confrontation, and identity was suddenly gone. No snap count, no enemy across the line, no whistle to release the tension. The edge didn't disappear, it had to be redirected. Porter found his way back to football, this time as a coach, teaching instead of terrorizing, guiding instead of disrupting. But even on the sideline, the intensity remained. He understood what it took to compete at the highest level because he had lived it. Away from the spotlight, reflection set in. The hits, the flags, the fines, the championships, all of it shaped the career that was never meant to be quiet. Joey Porter was never built for anonymity. Even in retirement, his presence carried weight, a reminder of an era when defense was personal and intimidation was part of the game. But with distance came clarity. Football had given him a voice. Now he had to learn how to use it without pads. And that might have been his toughest adjustment yet. Joey Porter won't be remembered as the quietest linebacker. He won't be remembered as the cleanest either. He'll be remembered as one of the most uncomfortable players the NFL ever had to face. Because he understood something simple. Fear changes behavior. Quarterbacks rushed throws. Linemen lost discipline. Entire game plans unraveled before the first hit was ever delivered. Joey Porter didn't just play defense, he played minds. In Pittsburgh, that mattered. The Steelers didn't ask him to tone it down, they asked him to channel it, and when it mattered most, it worked. His legacy isn't found in highlight reels alone, it's found in hesitation, in frustration, in the memory of players who never forgot facing him. This was the Joey Porter story, a reminder that the most dangerous defenders don't just punish your body, they stay with you long after the game is over. You're watching Black and Gold Legacy. If you believe football is as mental as it is physical, like, share, and subscribe, because some players don't need to hit you anymore. They're already inside your head.